had one of these in like a couple of months now, because I was in Nepal, and yeah, I was just there to see my family, and I wanted to kind of get things started again. And who better to kick this off again than our special guest today, Frances Khalastchi. I've been practicing how to say your name, but I still can't say it the way you say it. So you're gonna have to teach us how to say that properly again. So great to see you, everyone. And one of the purposes of the fireside is basically give listeners an opportunity to ask the podcast guests any questions that might come up from the conversation that we've had recently with Frances in the podcast interview. And this is meant to be like one of the intimate sessions where you get to be face to face with the guest, as if we're sitting around a campfire, just talking about the things that we care about. And the thing that we care about today is using marketing as a self-growth tool for designers. And one of the reasons I care about this topic is I've never been good at it. I've always found it cringe. I've always thought marketing is a dirty word. And every time I, have to work with marketing teams, I always used to think, oh, they don't do any proper work. They're just there to market, and it's not really proper work. But I realized, after I spent a lot of time with Frances, and especially people in the Happy Startup School, that, marketing is real work. And it's a work that actually helps you grow and helps you become better as a practitioner, as someone who's actually creating value for the world. And that's why I interviewed Frances to learn more about that in terms of how she works with her community and her community of coaches. So Frances is as one of the co-founders of Better, Bolder, Braver, which is a marketing community for coaches, and she helps coaches by helping them know themselves, like through self-awareness. And also she brings in her own experience, especially in the art insurance world and in the world of marketing. So between her and her co-founder, Simon Batchelor, they've got more than 40 years, was it? 40 years of experience. So that's a lot of experience that we can all learn from. And today we're hoping that we can continue the conversation around using reframing marketing as more of a self-growth tool rather than a dirty word. Learning also how to work out loud to beat your need for perfectionism, and also appreciating the value of communities in being able to do that, where you can use that as a safe space to experiment and to fail, rather than always having the pressure of having to put out something that you think is perfect and when not doing anything until then. And I've been guilty of this as well, in terms of waiting for things to be perfect before showing it to the world. And Frances was someone who really helped me, announce the podcast to the world when I was like battling my own perfectionism in terms of, oh, it's good enough, maybe it's not. And she was like, just fucking do it. Work out loud. And that's where you learn so much from. And I did learn a lot from that experience. So thank you, Frances, for joining us. And thank you everyone for joining us as well in this conversation. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to basically, I'm going to start, with a question for Frances in terms of, Frances, how is marketing a self-growth tool for you?
Because I have to ask myself if the stories that I am telling the world are true to me and are really meaningful to others. And that's the starting point, because you can't continue to tell truths or compelling stories if you have not done the work to know your own needs. So the buck stops at the point of standing up and talking about what you're there to do, who you are, and how you serve others. If you can't do that, and you can't do that with confidence, and it makes you cringe, then my suggestion is that there's something that's stopping you from getting clear on what you want to present to the world. And that's the work.
So what you're saying is marketing helps you clarify your own needs first.
That's right.
Cool. So I was actually thinking of putting people in breakout rooms, but because we have a relatively small and intimate group today, we probably don't even need to do that. We can probably all be in the same room here. We'll just kind of go around the room, and maybe if you could kind of share, well, first of all, what marketing means to you. How do you see marketing in your own life? Whether it's personal life or your professional lives. Who would like to start first? And then that person will get to pick the next person.
Yeah, I can start if you want.
Great, go for it, Yvonne.
I love how you frame the problem, and I love what Frances has said. I've been in the community, and I have been also in an in-between place where I haven't come out actually as a coach, like assertively knowing what I want. Sorry, tell me.
Sorry, you just cut out there for a bit.
Okay, sorry. So basically, I agree with what Frances said, is that I do have contradictions or paradoxes, I like to call them, and the way my worldview, and I'm trying to be more coherent. And that's what is making me not have a consistent story to tell to the world, and then to, attract and find my tribe, let's say. So I'm happy to be here. I'm starting to see more clearly my role. Maybe I'm not a coach as I don't know. I mean, I might be a coach and other stuff, but I like to build stuff as well with teams. So yeah, by coaching them, right? And I have needs for bigger impact, not for small scale only impact that I'm trying to recognize more. And this scares me a lot because it makes me talk to, anyway, if I look at my network, which I have been doing, and my circles where I belong or where I feel I belong, and I'm always at the edge, actually. I was talking about that with Matthew yesterday from the community as well. I can find the difficulty of communicating to all of these people and needing to go back to myself, to really ground myself in my voice and find the real voice that I have. And it's a big work. And I'm really happy to be part of this group that also is searching in a way or another. So thank you for being here. Is there a question I didn't ask or an aspect?
So yeah, we're just doing a quick kind of round of intro now in terms of what marketing means to us. So if you could maybe pass it on to someone else and
yeah, I pass it on to you can see Serena has her video on.
Thank you, Yvonne. So I hate marketing. It's something that I really do not understand. But since I met Simon and Frances, I started to think maybe there is good in that. But it's really hard for me to have an healthy relationship with marketing and to not put too much pressure on myself. And it's also hard to be truthful to myself because sometimes I feel that what I want to share is not good for marketing, meaning that maybe I want to share something that is really sad on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is about something else. So I have a really complex relationship with marketing. And I will pass it to Carlos.
Grazie, Serena. Can you hear me okay? Cool.
Yep.
I would say my perception of marketing, or my struggle with marketing in the past, was I confused marketing and selling. I thought marketing was all about trying to convince people to buy something from me. And what I've come to understand over the past few years, and I think particularly through conversations with Frances, there's the element of, so I'm really curious about this authenticity piece, about being able to talk about not just about the shiny things that I do, but also the fears and doubts around that and how that can be relevant. And also, and the other thing around this is there were two sides to this marketing story. There's what I think I'm saying, and there's what other people are hearing, and accepting that I can't control how people receive something, and then having this awareness that people will be at different stages of being able to understand what I'm saying, or they'll receive it in different ways. And so that's taken a bit of pressure off of me in terms of strong expectations as to what people should know or learn from what I say, and just thinking more into being a bit more open about how I talk, but also realizing that different people at different stages, and hopefully Frances will talk about this, different levels of awareness of me and what I'm about, will have different reactions, and not to hold on too tightly, but also being clear that there will be different types of levels of understanding of what I do. And so having that inform how I talk about me and my work.
Great, thanks, Carlos. I think, Vera, are you able to add to that?
Yes, sorry, I don't know whether you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Hi, sorry. For me, marketing means, I've come to realize that it means the way I present my work, myself, and what I do. And I'm starting to understand that the key is finding the way to do it, being authentic, but within the limits and the parameter that I set to myself. So being okay with what I decide to say or not to say about me, my work, and myself. But often I've confused as well communication and marketing, and I'm still learning or trying to find out what the difference is. So I'm really keen on hearing Frances about this as well.
Amazing. Thanks, Vera. I'm hearing some clear themes here around, like Yvonne said, like, how do you tell that consistent story of yourself? And that probably comes from knowing what that consistent story is. And also when you have that story and you want to share something, how do you know it's good enough? Like Sarah said, maybe sometimes we feel like, what we want to share is not good enough. And around marketing versus selling, and how do you do that with authenticity? And also something I resonated with what Carlos said was around, what I think I'm saying versus what other people are actually hearing, and letting go of the need for control for how other people perceive you. And what Vera said around, I think, again, how do you set those limits and parameters to yourself around which you operate, and also the difference between communication and marketing, which I'm also keen to understand more about, how the difference, or is communication or is marketing just like a little subset within communication? So it'd be interesting to talk about a lot of these themes and topics that you guys just shared. But one thing that Frances asked me to kick off with was something I wrote on my LinkedIn post. So what did I write on my LinkedIn post? Let me just kind of quickly look back at it to make sure that I'm using the exact same words. So I wrote, but I know sometimes it's not good. It's not how good I am, but how good other people think I am. Apparently, Frances didn't really like me saying that in terms of like the tone in terms of, she said she finds it very painful to read that. And also Matthew added to that it was a bit of a triggering statement for him as well. So Frances, what are your thoughts? What do you hear when I say a statement like that?
I loved that you then clarified. Would you like to read your clarification that you posted on LinkedIn as to what it is that you had actually meant? Because I think
Sure.
it's for people to hear that.
So what I actually meant was, for someone to buy my products and services, they need to believe that my products and services are good for them. And it's not sufficient just for me to believe that my products and services are good. And I think this is where I see marketing bridging the gap between what I think of myself and what others think of me.
Yeah. And I think the problem that Matthew and I had was whether or not you are getting validation based on what other people think of you. But I think what you've clarified on LinkedIn is that good design and good storytelling is about like moving the attention away from you to the user, to the person buying the product. And so that's why it was tricky for me, because what was concerning was how much the reception of what you put out there informs your sort of views of yourself. And as Carlos said, something that I believe strongly is that, we are only responsible for half of the message, and then, the other half of it becomes meaningful based on how someone else receives it. And our relationship with that is really important, because if we know that, it's both incredibly relieving, as Carlos describes, but it can also be quite overwhelming and difficult, because, depending on how much other people's views of you inform your own opinions of yourself. And, to Vero's point, to work out our own limits and boundaries is to understand what will happen when we are witness to other people's reception of our work. And I think that speaks to Sarah's I hate marketing problem, because I think what Sarah really hates is the pressure of not knowing how things are going to land with others. And it sounds to me like she knows that there's great growth potential in the ability to share her story, and she's demonstrated that in what she's done with you on the podcast, and how I've seen her becoming more confident and more joyful about being able to talk about stuff. This is not a quick journey. I think, if anyone's in our community or hangs out with Simon and I think what I'd like to think they'd take away quite quickly is that there are no quick wins. There are no tactics, that there are no shortcuts in marketing that will serve you in the long run. And that's because some of this stuff is pretty deep. I really like the question about what the difference is between communication, marketing, and selling. And I think we can certainly talk about that. And I think it might go quite a way to sort of taking this idea of what's ours and what's theirs apart a bit more. If that's something that's of interest to everybody, the kind of communication, marketing, selling thing, I think that'd be an interesting discussion. But do you want to? Yeah, cool. All right. Well, I mean, I was thinking about this, and I think Carlos is right in that there is a difference between marketing and selling, and Vero then also brought communication into it as yet another thing. So I thought what I might try and do is sort of equate it to a really important action. So I think with communication, for me, communication represents the bond between two people, the ability to find common ground between two people. So when we are in good communication with someone, we have found a common language and sort of a platform on which we can relate. But it's not a clear-cut thing from marketing and selling, because we need good communication to do good marketing and to be able to sell effectively. Because marketing, I would say, is a story. It's about telling a story. So if communication is about the language used, I think marketing is about the journey. So you use good communication to tell a story that other people can relate to and that is truthful about your journey. And then I think with selling, I think this is where it gets interesting in terms of design, because I think if we can move from thinking about selling as shameful and wrong to something else, a gift, I think we can use design terminology to help us do that in the form of, user centricity and good design and relevance of message. Because in selling something to someone, you are finding somebody that you know your product serves, and you are generously seeking them out and offering it to them. So there's a kind of intention there that again sort of makes selling stand out from the storytelling of marketing. It's like an intentional energy exchange opportunity. So, like I say, I don't think the three things are completely separate, but I think they require each other. So, with marketing, you require selling because you need to have a kind of destination in mind. I think with both marketing and selling, if you don't have good communication, if you don't have a common language, it's difficult to do any of it. And you can't really sell without there being a bond between you and another person, because you won't really know what anyone needs unless you've asked questions, and that requires good communication. But I'd be really interested in what anyone else is thinking at this point and how any of that relates to what they're.
I think sorry, Carlos, just quickly, the way I see it in my mind from what you just said was, so selling is the destination. So it's where you're trying to get to, and communication is like the vehicle on which you're trying to get there. Let's say you're going on a car with your client, and the journey that you go on in that car, in the vehicle to get to that destination is the marketing.
Yeah, like the road, maybe. So the car is the communication, the marketing is the road, and the selling is the destination, perhaps.
Cool. I love metaphors. That's how I learn. Carlos.
My view, but yeah.
No, I found that really, really useful in terms of clarification. Way that landed for me is now selling is, because sometimes it's always inferred that selling is a term is about a transaction that involves money. What I like now from listening to Frances is selling is an invitation to act, like to do the thing that you need to do, whether that's to eat good food or to change your behaviors or to buy something, but it's an invitation to act right now. And then with the marketing piece is this journey of understanding that it's important to act, and it's useful to act, and it's relevant to me in my life to act. And so you don't tell someone to do something and take an action before they understand why it's important. So it feels like there's this, and again, you guys will talk to more that I'm understanding this journey of awareness to not knowing I need to act, to understanding I need to act, and how can I act, and then presenting the thing, the service, the product, or even the behavior that needs to be adopted in the right moment is the selling piece. And then when the communication piece, the word connection springs to mind. So if on one hand, it's like if I market without communicating properly, I'm just shouting at people. But if I'm communicating, I'm listening and responding and then adapting. to then create this stronger connection, so that the marketing is holding someone's hand rather than shouting at people in the street. So that, yeah, that's what came across. Thank you.
Lauren.
Sorry, can I add something here? Using another metaphor, for me, it's, hi, Lawrence. It's like, I'm lost, sorry. I will come back.
I saw Yvonne nodding, and I was excited because I am surrounded by a number of Yvonnes who sort of want to make changes and, you know, are really interested in the system change piece of all of this. When
Yeah.
Carl was talking about, you know, sort of, inviting people to do something, I think it's also just one other thing on top of that, which is it's a clear invitation, but it's also a path that they can see for possible change, which is the gift bit. So it's the gift of invitation, which says, I see you and I hear you, and I care about you being involved in this. And then it's the gift of, and here's what you can do to actually do something about this situation. And as Carlos said, you know, the journey of consciousness that Simon and I talk about is paving the way from, we just very briefly talk about problem unawareness, so being problem unaware, being problem aware, solution unaware, solution aware, and then most aware. And if we try and sell before people are most aware what the problem is, and sort of what a solution might be, then, you know, yes, it is like sort of shouting.
You come across as arrogant, and you build on wars instead of actually bridging and actually opening bridges and reconnecting the net, the sacred network. I'm very happy with what I'm hearing. It's activating me with all the vulnerability of it.
Absolutely. And I think also there's a desperation. So you can come across as arrogant, but actually you can also come across, or at least to yourself, you can feel quite desperate because it feels no one's listening.
Yeah. And that there's a gift in that as well, when we sit in it and we really listen.
Yeah. It's like, I think marketing is like parenting, because when you're trying to teach something to a child, you have to start at the point of assuming that they know nothing. And that's really helpful because it makes you, as a parent, or not a parent, but somebody who can appreciate what parenting means, it makes you have to think about the things that are going to get them interested and the questions that might tease out of them.
Yeah.
You know, this is the magic of parenting, and also the curse, because it's like, once you know everything, to then have to go back to like, why, like my child this morning asked me why cats don't have to wear slippers.
So cute.
I love that question.
So curious. So innovative.
I'm like, okay.
But Frances, like, you know, if let's say marketing is like parenting, and if you're starting off with your client or your prospect with assuming that they don't know anything, doesn't that make it come across more patronizing?
In what way? Say more.
If we assume that they don't know anything and we basically start from the basics, which they might already know in terms of, you know, the context and the problem and things like that, does that make us come across as like, oh yeah, you know, listen to me, I know everything, like you don't know anything kind of attitude?
Well, there's quite a lot in there, because we talk about speaking at every level of awareness. So if you can move people quickly from problem unaware to solution unaware, then you're doing a good job. I.e., if what you're saying and the way you say it says to someone, "Oh, you are aware of this. Great. Well, then you'll be aware of this. Oh, right. You're aware of that. Okay, so you'll know this. Oh, okay. So what you're looking for is this. Oh, right. Okay. Well, we've got this. Do you want to do that?" So at no point are you patronizing. At no point are you suggesting to somebody that you have all the answers. And, you know, this plays into the idea that Simon and I have about always trying to be the guide and not the hero, because it's not useful to stand up and say you have all the answers at all. It's more useful to say that you're very warm to the journey that someone else is on. I'm just seeing what Carlos is saying in the chat. Listening to what they know.
I'm happy to elaborate.
Yeah,
Go
please.
for it, Carlos.
Well, there's two things. There's the desperation thing that I was curious to just pull a thread on, but to follow on from the parenting analogy and this patronizing piece, you can, as a parent, what I would hope most of you would do when you do become parents is you actually sense into whether your child is actually listening to you. So if you're just talking to them in a very patronizing way and they already know the stuff that you're telling them, they will switch off or they will resist. And so there's an element of the communication piece is also being in listening mode. And I think if I think of marketing purely like as shouting to the void, then you'll know, yeah, there's a good chance you'll patronize some people because there's no one you're waiting to hear back from. And so there's the communication piece, where the way I'm hearing it now is like, whatever channel you're on, if there is a two-way communication happening, then there's a better chance that you won't patronize people. And I think also Frances talked very clearly about, and there will be different, if you have a different message for different people at different stages, then you'll be fine. I was curious about the desperation piece and how that links to this idea of self-growth, and it's that awareness of when you are being desperate, what that's telling about yourself and what you're pushing hard up against when you're feeling those feelings, and what's that, and how that informs you about your relationship to the thing and the people that you're trying to tell the story to about the thing.
I think authenticity question, Carlos, is really relevant, because if we get into the real practice of authenticity, whatever that means, then at no point will we feel uncomfortable, because we appreciate that our authenticity or our gift to people is part of the message. Sorry, somebody just said something and I cut over them. Was that you, Yvonne?
But keep going, Frances.
No, please. What were you going to say?
No, I think it builds on what you're saying right now, that for us to be able, so I can speak of that if you allow me, Carlos, because I've been in despair. You know that. I mean, I've been in the community very much into an inner conflict, which is I want to make change, but I'm also very much in despair myself from everything that I have seen being in the space of Lebanon, of activism in the last years before I came here. And just allowing that to myself, I mean, I think Lawrence knows it a lot, has been tough on me. I'm very tough on myself, and I see the urgency of change, so I always confused about the priorities. And I have a tension that I feel that change is possible on a very high level, but then I don't reconcile it with reality, and there's this tension. And now I'm much better because I went through despair. I allowed myself to, and that's a big privilege that I had, to be able to do this work, the inner work. So when I go through despair and I go out of despair and I'm safe and I'm alive, and I see that my people also went through despair, we thought we would never get out of it. And they have been managing in multiple ways that are not sustainable for sure, but that, like, I've been living resilience or whatever. And I'm opening myself to much more joy and so on. This is where, for me, the unfolding me, allowing myself to be unfolding, for instance, is something that is quite cool if we can learn it about ourselves. And I'm learning about the communication part. If I'm not able to be in my own despair, I will not be able to be with those people that maybe I would love to just share a bit of light with, or connect in a way to a big light that's out there in the world that can help them start their businesses, become independent financially, hopefully happy as well, whatever. So I had to go through my own despair. And this is where, when I see that marketing is the inner work, maybe I'm very shy to say stuff like that in my coaching page, to say that I had to go through my own despair to be able to stand in this kind of mess. And I invite you that we look into it, that we don't get afraid of it, that we also look into the light of what we're going through, etc. So anyway, I'm very grateful for this conversation. It's making me coherent a little bit more. I'm in this space where I think things are feasible even in this material world, not only theoretically, but I need to have the courage to give myself the time to think about it, to have the right partners to think with, and to make it. Make my bit, because my bit is small also, and that's a big part of the difficulty of finding our voice, I guess, sometimes. For me, at least.
Yeah, no, I love all of this.
Understand the humility of it. You have to do your part. It doesn't need to be you in the center and everybody, it's not that. It doesn't work this way, really.
You're not the center of it, and yet you are. Because, when you're building a business, it's to serve other people because you've gone on a journey and you can see that you have something to give to them, or you can hold space for them. But you're creating a business, and this is very much to the kind of ethos of the Happy Startup School, which is why our communities work really well together. You're creating a business that is going to serve you as well. And if you can talk about that, how your work meets your own needs, instead of thinking, as to the point, Nourish, about I've got all the answers, you should listen to me, you know nothing. It's not only about what you have to give, but also what you're trying to create in the
as a culture also.
Pardon?
As a culture, we were talking about the culture of justice yesterday and what it means, and for me it's a caring, unfolding justice. It's an ongoing journey in society. So what culture we're creating together?
Yeah, exactly. And then it all becomes a bit more permissible. So all these feelings, all these icky feelings around marketing are because we haven't really got clear on why it's important for us to do work that we believe in and create a culture that we can live in. But as soon as we realize why that's so important, it becomes far less hard to talk about it. And people think they hate social media, but it's not social media they hate. It's the incongruency between sort of what they're saying and what they need. So whenever people say, "Oh, I hate LinkedIn," or "I hate this, that, and the other," I rather like, though, the idea of printing T-shirts, and I'll give you one first, Sarah, that says, "I hate marketing," because I feel like if you can own that, then what you're saying is, yeah, I really struggle with this. And, to be able to admit that is to, be a human being and
to be problem aware.
Exactly.
No shame at being human.
Carlos, I find it so difficult to look at chat and talk and understanding and articulating what it is you hate. Yeah, exactly. Here's what I was going to say to you, Sarah. Like, what do you really hate when you say I hate marketing? Really?
Maybe two things. One is from the marketing that I see outside that is not really, it doesn't seem authentic. It seems like made up of things, and I'm used to the corporate marketing that is not really authentic. At least
called bullshit marketing.
in my experience. And the second thing for me, and related to my project, is that I need to, I don't know what is the correct way to say it, but I need to be vulnerable. I need to be open. And I want to talk about dark things. And I want to talk about pain. I can give you an example. I have an episode of my podcast this week, and we are talking about suicide. And I was till now not courageous enough to be upfront saying this week we are talking about suicide, because I don't know, it's really hard to be so open in an open platform where you can see somehow the responses by the clicks, by the comments, and put your heart out and see that maybe is not welcomed in the way you hope to be. And yes, it's really hard for me to not have this idea that, for example, LinkedIn needs to talk, to be on LinkedIn, you need to talk about work and not about something that is not work related, even if for me it's work related.
May I ask you some questions?
Oh no. Yes, you can ask me questions.
Okay. What are you, if you had to describe taking people from an A to a B, what's the A and what's the B?
Again, maybe it's not so clear for me because I'm still thinking about my personal experience, but my personal A right now is you are feeling alone, and my personal B is you are not alone. There is good in the world. There are people that can understand you, that can support you, and things that you can do. But this is my personal journey. I feel sometimes not. I don't know. I'm still in doubt.
So my next question is, do you want to help people go from A to B, or do you feel more, and it's totally fine if this is the answer, but is it more for you about processing your own A to B right now?
I think the second one right now, but it's still not clear for me if I'm not allowing myself to think to the first one, because it's a safer place for me to say, oh, I'm doing that for myself. It's something personal, and instead of saying, do the extra step.
So there's a few things, and I'd happily help you with this, when there's more time. But one of the things that I want to put to you is that I think we make assumptions that we want to help people that look and sort of have experienced much of what we have, and we are. And we see this in our community that actually sometimes it's a little bit too close still. We're still on the journey, and we can work out what we would like to help people with, or what we have the skills to help people with, without necessarily helping people that are on exactly the same journey as us. And I think the art is about Simon talks about empathy, authority, and journey. We want to have the empathy for someone, be an authority, and then take them on a journey. And rather than pushing people into doing something, we're not in the business of making you be vulnerable, because we very much, and particularly I am, acutely aware of people's limits and boundaries for now. So there's always the time. One of the things that we like to remind people of in marketing is you're not making decisions for the rest of your life. Whether it's around your niching, your audience, your ideal client, or whether it's around how and what you want to talk about. It's just where you are right now. And it's about listening to something. If there's something in you that says, I don't feel comfortable about talking about suicide on LinkedIn, I'm not going to sit here and say to you, if you work with me, I'll get you to a point of being able to do that. Because I think what's really important is what's really going on that's making you uncomfortable. And if you're saying, I want to create the safety for myself to do the work around this, without sort of necessarily putting myself out there in a way that's going to make me feel vulnerable, then that's really important. At the same time, if you've produced an incredibly good podcast episode which features suicide, I think there's ways that you can talk about it, removing yourself, or rather focusing in on what's really important for others in the episode, and sort of working out a way of speaking to people that's not going to make you feel too vulnerable. And so that's why I think marketing is a self-growth tool, because it helps you to create those limits and boundaries around stuff that's difficult, but at the same time needs to be heard by others.
I love it. Carlos, did you have something to say earlier? You raised your hand earlier.
I forgot because I got absorbed in what just Frances was talking about now. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I loved what Frances said around, maybe are you on the journey yourself? And also I think what Yvonne mentioned earlier around, opening up in your marketing. I guess my question is around, I mean, I've, heard a lot around, bring your holistic selves to your work. And when you talk about work, it's not, you can't separate work and your personal being anymore. It's one thing, but in practice, I guess, how do you do it? Where do you draw the line in terms of, what do you communicate as a story in your marketing to sell something? And what are some of the things that you don't talk about because you don't want to be oversharing either? Right?
So I think, you know what, if we all shut our eyes, I think very quickly we know what it is that we don't want to talk about. And I think this is more about saying I can still be useful without everybody knowing everything. And so I'm going to focus on the things that I am comfortable talking about and why they are helpful. I know that there's lots going on for me that mean that I am even better at being a co-founder of Better, Bolder, Braver than if I didn't have those experiences in the past or now. And I'm constantly thinking about how they serve me, and I'm doing the work to better understand them. But that doesn't mean I sit there and on LinkedIn every day talk about them. They inform my confidence about what I do. But I can separate and create boundaries between the experience and the way in which I'm talking about what I do. It certainly informs my passion for it, and that's because I'm self-aware. Carlos? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I just remembered what I wanted to ask. And I think it's related to what Sarah was saying about her experience or what it feels like to market. And the question that springs to mind is like thinking about, or was reflecting on how I've been marketed to and how I've responded to different ways that people have done the marketing and how that is informing myself. Or is it telling me something about myself in terms of what I feel is like right or wrong or good or bad about marketing? Is when I see messages that are, or if someone markets to me in a certain way and I think, oh, that's rubbish, then that's kind of telling me something about myself, but it's also influencing what I think about what marketing is.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just wondering about with Serena's situation, has she experienced marketing in such a way that's really clouded her judgment about it? Or colored, not clouded, colored, influenced.
Have you?
Yes.
And it's like, my question was like, maybe this question I've been asking myself is like, when have you been marketed to and it was like, oh my God, that's horrible. And that's just like totally disfaithful. And when has it been like, oh, wow. Or are there times when you've been marketed to and you didn't realize it was marketing, but you've been pulled into something?
That's what I get annoyed about, is that everyone thinks all the ugly stuff sits under the marketing bracket, but not the lovely stuff. So did you know that being in this community was marketing of a certain identity, of a certain way of doing things? Did you know that being in this community, did you know that being on this call was an invitation to you to do something differently? This is marketing. But it doesn't sit under the marketing. It sits under the, people go, oh, marketing, it's social media, it's emails. And it's like, marketing is being in community. Marketing is being heard. Marketing is having people invite you to talk. Like, this is marketing. Marketing is about telling stories and including people and paving the way and going on the journey with people that makes them feel more confident and like clear about what they want to do. It's taking them on the journey through, I had no idea, to, oh wow, that's what happened to me when I was in this community. And we talk about the needs and wants in our community. People come to us because what they want is tactics about how to get more clients so they can make more money. And what they need is to be in community so that they don't feel alone.
Great. We're almost out of time, so I'm going to just do a quick recap of some of my notes here. And while I'm doing that, if you could think of the one takeaway that you can take away from this conversation today. So we started off with, just how, marketing can be really tricky for a lot of us. We don't want, sometimes we think, what we're trying to share is not good enough. Welcome, Ruth. Also the different semantics around marketing versus selling versus communication, like how are they different? We also talked about how marketing, communication is about the bond between two people. Marketing is about telling that story, and selling is probably the destination that we're trying to get them to, right? So it could be that gift. Also, Frances mentioned around how marketing can be like parenting, where you're starting off by assuming they don't know anything, and then Carlos added that it's also about listening, where you're trying to know what they know and what they don't know, and then starting from there. We also talked about opening up in marketing, and also how maybe you're taking people from A to B, but maybe you yourself are on the same journey, right? And how much of that journey you want to open up to. So and also Frances wrapped up beautifully by saying marketing is about people. It's about being in a community, being heard, telling stories, including people in the journey that you're trying to take them on. So based on everything you've heard so far, what's the one takeaway for you from all this?
I love that Ruth has just joined us.
I'm sorry, I put down it was from one. Sorry.
Don't worry. I think it's
there is a recording, Ruth, so don't worry.
I'm thinking takeaway. I've just arrived.
What's your biggest takeaway?
So shall we start with Carlos this time?
Yeah, I think, well, you've summarized everything beautifully in terms of the stuff that I'm taking away. If there's one thing, I think I want to look back again at all the times I've, like Frances said, I put marketing into this ugly bucket, and just what is it about it that I didn't like, and then also trying to sense into what are the things that I didn't think was marketing, but is actually stuff that I was well received and helped me learn more about what I need to learn, and then maybe adopting those things as behaviors that I need to use because it feels right.
Thanks, Carlos. Who should I pass it on to?
I was going to say Ruth. Serena.
A lot of reflection for me to take home. I need to buy the t-shirt with I hate marketing, but I wrote in the chat I don't hate marketing anymore.
Oh.
meaning that it was an important step in understanding that it's not marketing, it's self-growth. So mission accomplished with this fireside.
Great.
I will pass it to Yvonne.
Loved meeting you, Serena. Thanks for sharing your beautiful story. It was vulnerable and very touching, and we relate, and then you transform us. Thank you. And it was so beautiful for me. I don't have exact words, but I would love to know how this continues. I would be interested in being guided. I don't know. I have started a business between brackets. It wasn't really that. I was more doing activism when I left my corporate job, and I failed. I mean, obviously, and I came back to being employed, and now I'm learning. I'm learning really marketing, or like I'm learning accounting and cash flows and so on. So I would be very interested in continuing the conversation.
You'd be well. Yeah, I'd love to continue to talk to you.
Thanks, Yvonne.
Thank you very much.
So I think for me, the key takeaway was I need to be aware of my own journey and the experiences that I've had so far, and curate the elements that help me form my authentic story that is of value to others. And I think that was my key takeaway from this conversation.
Great. I feel like we needed to put GMT on the timing, because I feel like Andrea's probably had the same issue, which is she thought it was. She's just joined.
Hey, Andrea.
Hi.
Sorry, we're just about to wrap up.
Hi. Oh, okay. Well,
Did you
lovely
also
to see you both.
did you also think you was at what is it, 1 o'clock GMT?
I was thinking it was 2 my time. Yes.
Is it 2 your time? Oh, okay.
Yep.
I'm not sure what happened there, but apologies. It was meant to be at 12 p.m. British summer time.
No worries. I'll catch the recording. Lovely to see you both. I'm sure it was amazing. Oh. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll check it out. Cheers.
No worries. Great. So, Frances, did you have any final words of encouragement or reflection for anyone, for all of us, to wrap up the conversation?
Yeah, it's basically off the back of what Yvonne said. I think we all think that we're meant to be communicating, marketing, and selling to others. But it's my invitation to consider how you might also like to communicate, market, and sell to yourself. And what is it that you need to be, what language do you need to be speaking, what story do you need to tell, and what is it that you want to get yourself to buy into, basically. And how will that help you in the world?
Perfect. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us in the Design Feeling Fireside. And we'll see you again soon. And please do not forget to check out my interview with Frances. Let me just pop up the link to that, actually, so that you can listen to that. Let me just quickly find that here.
If anyone would like to check out Simon and my work a bit more, you can get loads of free stuff on our website, which is betterbolderbraver.com. You also are warmly invited to join our community, which you can access via our website, and you'll get 2 weeks free trial to have a look around. But if anyone wants to connect in another way, more personally with me, please don't hesitate to drop me a line. I know some of the stuff we've talked about today feels like it is very personal, and that's perfectly fine. So I'd be happy to talk to you, or anyone who's listening in.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, and hope you enjoy the rest of the day, enjoy the weekend. And yes, Yvonne, please feel free to join the page as well and give more details. And we'll see you next time.